Alright, you guys, we're back at the lodge. It is 2 days before Christmas. This is going to be my last chance of the year to play some poker, try to hit that 10K bankroll challenge that I set out for. So I think I've got about $350 to go to hit that. So hopefully we can do it. Hopefully we can win and not lose. But, you know, fingers crossed. If we don't win, if we don't make it, that's okay. It'll happen next year. Otherwise, yeah, let's go see how it goes. The very first hand we're dealt, I can't even get my camera set up in time. We've got pocket eights in the +2 position. I raised to $10, and the next player min re-raises to 20. It folds back to me, and I opt just to call here. The flop comes 6-3-8 rainbow, so we flop top set. I checked my opponent, and he c-bets for $20 again. Given his min re-raise before the flop, I'm inclined to believe he's probably got a pair. I'd normally just call here with a set, but given his interest in the hand, it feels like a spot I'll probably get paid off, so I go ahead and raise to 60. After a little bit of thinking, our opponent unfortunately lets his hand go, and we take the pot.
That's my time, guys.
After the button passes, we pick up pocket 10s in the hijack. It folds to me, and I raise to $10. Just the cutoff calls, so we're heads up to the flop, which comes 10-6-6 rainbow. We flop a boat. Our hand is so strong, I want to give our opponent a chance to catch up, so I decide to check. Our opponent checks back, so we're headed to the turn, which brings the 3 of clubs. This probably doesn't change anything, but I want to start building the pot, so I lead now for $15. We get snap called, so we're heading to the river where we see the 7 of clubs. Our opponent's shown some interest in the pot, and I want to get paid. It's hard to believe he has much on this board though, so I just double our bet from the last street, making it $30. He thinks for a few moments, and believe it or not, he raises to $80 now. He doesn't have much behind, maybe another $50 or $60, so I don't wait too long to push all in. You can. Our opponent unfortunately folds, but we're happy to pick up a nice pot.
Yeah. It's funny because I had a case 10.
Oh yeah? 20 minutes later, we've got Jack 10 offsuit on the button. There's one limper, and I raise to $12 with position. The blinds fold, and just the limper calls, so we're heads up to the flop, which comes 10 queen deuce with 2 spades. It checks to me, and with second pair, I c-bet for $15. Our opponent calls, and we're headed to the turn, which brings the queen of clubs pairing the board. My opponent checks to me again, and this seems like your typical OMC type player from what I've seen so far. Even though the queen pairing the board is good for our hand since it means there's less of a chance he has one, I still elect to check behind here since I don't want to bloat the pot. The river brings the ace of diamonds. Our opponent checks to us again, and unfortunately this card is pretty bad for us. If we're ahead, we're not going to get any more value here, and we may be behind at this point. I check behind and show our 2 pair. Thankfully, our opponent mucks, and we take the pot.
Man. You know, Mike, I had drunk eggnog for the first time in 5 years yesterday.
Just 10 minutes later, we look down at pocket aces in the hijack. The under the gun player limps, and the middle position player raises to $15. At the time, I overlooked the under the gun limp and thought it was a straight raise to 15, so I make a somewhat small re-raise to 40. It folds back to the under the gun player, who 4-bets all in for $306. What a dream spot. The player between us folds, and I insta-call his all in.
I was just going to call you. My hand. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. I was like, you know, against aces, because I had ace king.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good laydown. Yeah, you get raised, re-raised, all in.
Yeah. Call and then see the flop and gone.
Uh-oh, there's the queens. There's the nines. Happened to me last session too. Nice hand. How much is that? 300? Our opponent shows he hit a set with pocket 9s as soon as the flop lands, and unfortunately our aces don't improve. Our hopes of hitting a 10K bankroll in what's probably our last session of the year is suddenly that much further away. Twice back-to-back sessions where I lost with aces against, I think it was a set of 9s both times. After our aces get cracked, I rebuy for $200 more, so we're in for $500 total now. Almost a half hour passes before this next hand where we pick up pocket queens. There's one limper, I raise to $15 in the hijack, and just the cutoff calls, so we're heads up to the flop, which comes 4-10-7 with 2 clubs. I c-bet for $22, and we take it down. It's not a big pot, but I'll take the small win after having our aces cracked for our entire stack. 20 minutes later, we've got queen 9 offsuit on the button. The cutoff, who's made comments about me always having a solid hand, raises to $10. I decide to take advantage of that image, re-raising to $25. It folds back to the cutoff, who calls, and we're heads up to a not-so-great flop of 7-4-6 with 2 hearts. When he checks to me, I continue the story with a quick c-bet of $30. Eventually, he makes the call, and we see the turn, which is the king of clubs. Our opponent checks again, and he's pretty short at this point, so I decide to push all in for about $65 effective. He throws his hand in before the dealer can even grab the all-in card, and our aggressive play works out, so we take it down. About 10 minutes later, we've got Jack 8 suited on the button. The cutoff raises to $10, and I call with position here. The small blind calls as well, and the three of us head to the flop, which comes 8 king queen rainbow. The small blind checks, and the cutoff c-bets for $15. I make a pretty loose call with bottom pair and some backdoor draws, and the small blind decides to join along too. On the turn, we see the two of clubs. Both players check to me, and we pick up the flush draw, but with two other players in the hand, I decide to check behind in hopes of improving on the river. And improve we do when the river comes the queen of clubs. We pick up the flush, and when both players check to me, I make a value bet for $40. Unfortunately, both players fold, but I'm happy to take down another pot.
Thank you.
15 minutes later, we pick up Jack 10 offsuit. There's one limp, and I raise to $12 on the button. The big blind calls, as does the limper, so the three of us head to the flop, which comes 8 queen king rainbow. So we flop a straight draw. Any ace or 9 would give us the nuts. Both players check to me, and I c-bet for $20 with our draw. The big blind calls, and the limper folds, so we're heads up now. And the turn is exactly what we want to see when it brings the 9 of diamonds. The big blind checks again, and we're betting for value now, making it $35. We get a very quick call, and I'm hoping for a clean river that lets our opponent call another bet. The river brings the ace of spades, so we pick up a bigger straight, but this card could be scary for the big blind depending on our holding. She checks to us again, and I make what's perhaps too large of a bet for $60. She folds immediately, which is not what we wanted to see, but we win another pot, building up our stack bit by bit.
Thank you. Good. Thank you.
The very next hand, we're dealt king 10 suited in diamonds. There's one limp, and I raise to $12 in the cutoff. The small blind calls, the big blind calls, and the limper calls as well, so we've got 4 of us headed to the flop. The flop comes 9-5 deuce rainbow. Everyone checks to me, and I just check back here, hoping to improve. The turn brings the king of spades. Everyone checks again, so I make a delayed c-bet for $20 with top pair now. The small blind and the big blind both call, and the limper folds, so the three of us head to the river, which is the 10 of clubs. We pick up 2 pair now, and when both players check again, I put out a bet of $30 for value. Unfortunately, everyone folds again, and we take it down without a showdown.
Good. Thank you.
15 minutes later, we're dealt ace-queen suited in spades. The under the gun player limps, and alarm bells are going off in my head. I've only seen this player limp under the gun when they're looking to limp re-raise, always coming into the pot for a raise in other positions. When it folds to me in the cutoff though, I still feel like my hand is too strong to limp behind in position, allowing the blinds to come in for free, so I make a raise to $12. The button calls, the blinds fold, and as anticipated, the under the gun player now re-raises to $52. I could fold here, but my hand feels a bit too strong, even though they say a limp re-raise is always aces, so I opt to defend. The button, who's been playing a crazy loose game, says,
"Let's do it."
So the three of us head to the flop, which comes deuce 7-9 with 2 clubs. Unfortunately, we don't get a favorable flop. We've just got 2 overs with a backdoor flush draw, and when the under the gun player c-bets for $65, I don't see any reason to continue here. I muck, and the woman behind me throws her hand in too. Okay, get ready for a punt, y'all. A half hour passes when we pick up king-queen offsuit on the button. The under the gun player limps in, the +1 player limps in, and the middle position player limps in as well, and I raise to $20 in position. The small blind, under the gun, and +1 players all make the call, and the middle position player folds, so the 4 of us head to the flop, which brings ace 7-6 rainbow. Everyone checks to me, and this flop should be good for my raising range, so I c-bet for 30. Just the under the gun player, who I've played with before, and I know plays a pretty solid game, calls, and we're heads up to the turn. On the turn, we see the 10 of diamonds. So we pick up a gut shot, and I could check behind in hopes of improving, but I decide to feign strength and take another stab at the pot. I put in a bet of $60, and our opponent immediately check raises all in for $150. I know I should fold here. You all watching this know I should fold here. I don't know what overcame me in the moment, but I think the idea that there are so many draws out there that we might have more outs than just a jack for the straight overcame me, and I make a pretty bad call here for $90 more. The river doesn't improve us when it brings the ace of diamonds, and our opponent shows pocket 6s for a boat. Nothing much to say on this hand other than I made a bad call and what was probably a bad turn bet against this particular player as well, and I know it. The very next hand, we've got King 4 suited in hearts. The middle position player limps, and I raised to $10 in the cutoff. The button, small blind, and limper all call, so the 4 of us head to the flop, which comes King Ace Queen with 2 hearts. Not a bad flop. We've got second pair with the nut flush draw. It checks to me, and I c-bet for $25. Everyone folds back to the limper, who check raises to 75. This is the OMC player I mentioned earlier, and I've only ever seen him raise with the absolute nuts, so I'm 100% sure he's got Jack 10 for the straight. Knowing his holding, I don't want to get it in here, so I opt just to call in hopes of improving. We get there right away when the turn brings the 9 of hearts. Our opponent who's got us covered pushes all in for $217 effective, and I insta-call. We show our hand, my read was right, and our opponent's drawing dead before the river.
Nut flush.
We take down a huge pot, and we're back in the black for the day.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
The player to my right has been joking about how he's got to hit his straddle quota for the month, so I decided to continue with the straddle, joking that I'm hitting my once a month quota. The +2 player raises to $10, and we look down at pocket 6s. It folds around to the big blind who calls, and I call as well, hoping for a favorable flop. And we get exactly that when it comes 4-6 King Rainbow. We both check to the raiser, who c-bets for $20. The big blind folds, and on this dry board, I opt just to call in hopes of trapping. The turn brings the 4 of hearts. We pick up a boat, and I check again, hoping to get another bet out of our opponent. He's too good though, and he checks behind. The river brings the deuce of hearts. I don't want to miss any value against this player if he's got a king or any other pair that can call here, so I decide to lead for $50. He thinks for a few seconds before making the call.
I got a boat.
With the boats, man,
Yeah.
the 6 boats.
Yeah.
He had a 6's boat. He had a 6's boat earlier before everybody shut down.
Disease of the sixes.
So we went a little back from our earlier punt against the same guy who also happened to have 6s full that hand. Almost a half hour passes before we pick up pocket 7s in the cutoff. There's 2 limpers, and I raised to $15 with position. The small blind calls, and both limpers call as well. And don't you know it, we spike our 4th set of the day when the flop comes Ace 7 Queen Rainbow. Man, we are just running hot. Everyone checks to me, and I c-bet for $46 with bottom set. It folds back to the limper, who makes the call, and we're heads up to the turn where we see the 10 of clubs. This isn't the best turn card since there's now a possible straight. It's not likely, but when our opponent checks again, I decide to check back to see how our opponent reacts on the river. Thankfully, we get a clean river card when it comes the 6 of spades. Our opponent checks to us again, and now I'm sure we've got the best hand. I want to bet an amount that will get us a call since many of our river bets have gotten folds, so I go a little on the smaller side, making it $55. Unfortunately, we get yet another fold, but I'm happy to take it down regardless.
Thank you.
Very much, I appreciate that.
3 hands later, we've got 5-3 suited in spades. It folds to me in the +1 position, and I make a small raise to $7 to play a little tricky. The middle position player makes a small re-raise to $17. The small blind calls, and I'm getting a good price, so I call here as well for just $10 more. The flop comes 5-4 Ace Rainbow, so we flop second pair with a gut shot. We both check to the 3-better, who checks behind, so we get a free turn where we see the 6 of clubs. We're downgraded to third pair, but we're open-ended now. When it checks to me this time, I decide to lead out here for $20 since an ace could be a holding in my range given my initial pre-flop raise, and we've still got equity if we're called. The middle position player insta-calls, and the small blind folds, so we're heads up to the river, which brings the deuce of hearts. We hit our straight. Now we just need to figure out how much to bet to get our opponent to call. Given how quickly he called on the turn, I think we can size up a little bit here. I make it $50, and our opponent's not going anywhere. He puts the chips in, we get a showdown, and I show our straight. He mucks, and we scoop.
Thank you.
Button is great.
Almost another 30 minutes passes before we pick up ace-9 suited and hearts in the cutoff. There's 1 limper, and I raise to $12. The button re-raises to 30, and when it folds back to me, I decide to call once to defend. The flop comes Jack Deuce Deuce Rainbow. We miss completely, and I check to our opponent expecting to give up. He immediately checks back though, so we get a free turn of the Jack of Spades. I check again, and he checks back once more, so I'm thinking we're most likely chopping at this point. The river brings the 3 of clubs. I check for a third time, and
Ace, yeah.
he shows ace queen, and we are in fact chopping the pot.
Give that one back to you. Thanks.
2 hands later, we've got pocket 9s in the hijack. It folds to me, and I raise to $10. The button and big blind both make the call, and we get a pretty ugly flop of Jack 7 King with 2 hearts. The big blind checks to me, and I decide to check back here. The button checks as well, so we get a free turn card of the Queen of Clubs. My hand's getting worse by the second, and I check back again. It checks through once more, so we get a free river, which is the Jack of Hearts. It checks around one last time, and we show our hand. The button has ace high, the big blind mucks, and our pair is good.
Thanks.
2 more hands later, we've got pocket 4s in the +1 position. The under the gun player raises to $10, and I call with our pair. The middle position player re-raises to 40. It folds back around to me, and I'd normally just fold here, but we're both so deep that I decide to make a loose call here since we potentially got huge implied odds. And can you believe it, when the flop comes King Ace 4 Rainbow, we flop our 5th set of the day. I check, and we see another $40 bet from our opponent. I call with the intention of trapping here, and on the turn we see the Ace of Hearts. I check again, and our opponent checks back now. Given the check back, I doubt he has an ace, unless he happens to have Ace King that's slow playing a boat now. I really don't think that's likely though, given our stack sizes. The river brings the 6 of clubs. I lead out for $70, hoping to get called by what's likely to be a king or underpair. Unfortunately, we just can't get paid off on our sets today, and our opponent folds. I'm not complaining though, as we take down another sizable pot. Another 2 hands later, we're dealt pocket 6s. We see a raise to $12, 2 players call, and I call to hit another set, cause apparently today's our day. The 4 of us head to the flop of, wait for it, 6 Ace 5 Rainbow. Yup, 5th set of the day in the span of 4.5 hours. The small blind leads for $16. I call since the board is relatively dry, the original raiser calls, and the last player folds. The turn brings the 9 of diamonds. The small blind leads again for $20 this time. It's a small bet, and the board's getting a little draw heavy for my liking. I want to get more money in the pot and charge any possible draws, so I raise to $75. Unfortunately, both players fold, and I show my set of 6s again since we're heading out for the night.
I gave you. Yeah, I had an ace here. Nice.
Guys, we did it. So we bought in for 500 in all. We bought in for 300. Had my aces get cracked with the all-in, which was not fun. Brought me down to like 100 and change. So bought in for another 200, in for 5 total. We cashed out for, it was 1034. So we hit the bankroll challenge goal. We are over 10K for the year of winnings. And something I didn't mention before is actually I took out $400 from the bankroll a few months ago when I was feeling a little devastated from a series of losses. So I took $400 out to buy an Xbox. So technically we're at like 14,500 or something. Or, I'm sorry, 10,500. But since I took that out, really it's like 10,100 and change. So happy to hit that goal for the year. Yes. So I'm going to put out another vlog with goals for next year. But done with the cash game for today. I'm going to go play in the free roll, and if that goes well, that'll be the next vlog after this one. So if you enjoyed the vlog, they're announcing, hopefully you can hear me. If you enjoyed the vlog, please hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. Leave a comment. I'll respond. I love talking to you guys, and otherwise, hope you have a great New Year. Have a happy Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Diwali, happy whatever it is that you celebrate, and we will see you next year. Take care.